COVID spike. Cases hit a 9-month high, triggering new mandates. Ukraine's president signals he's willing to discuss neutrality with Russia. We take a closer look at just who Volodymyr Zelenskyy is. Also ahead, a weekend of live fire drills light up skies over Beigan Island. Plus,
relocating a whole village for pollution. That's what Taiwan's government is planning to do here in Dalinpu. I'm James Chaser reporting for TaiwanPlus, and I'll be finding out how residents in this once bustling fishing village feel about the plan.
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Taiwan reported 83 local cases of COVID-19 on Sunday, its largest number in 9 months. The central government is taking temporary measures to curb the outbreak and says the situation is under control as only 34 local cases were reported today. Bing Wang reports.
These workers at the Datan power plant in the northwestern city of Taoyuan are waiting in line to take a rapid COVID-19 test before the shift. The company is taking extra precautions after Taiwan reported 83 local COVID-19 cases on Sunday, its biggest number since June of 2021, and most of the infections came from the power plant.
这个是一个密集度非常高裁剪的这个宿舍区68名有50名阳性这样我们要提高警觉。
47 out of the 52 positive cases were migrant workers living in this company dormitory. Those with COVID-19 have been taken to a central quarantine facility. To prevent a further outbreak in Taiwan, the government is implementing temporary measures, particularly in establishments known as adult entertainment industries. These include karaoke bars, dance halls, pubs, tea houses, saunas, and massage parlors.
进入这些特定娱乐场所的顾客都要提供至少接种3剂的证明。 那对于工作人员、从业人员含流动工作人士，皆应提供接种疫苗2剂，且满14天。那如果第2剂已经满了3个月者，就可以打第3剂的人都要打第3剂。
Employees at these establishments are also required to take COVID-19 tests on a weekly basis until the end of April. Taiwan's health minister says plans for further reducing quarantine periods for travelers into Taiwan from 10 to 7 days could be postponed.
有可能，但是要到达一定的程度。我们不会到达就是说承受的临界点才来改了。当然要预留一些量能。那有这样的一个风险的时候，那我们就会，就是脚步会变得比较慢。
While this is the largest outbreak of local cases in 9 months, the government says there's no need to panic. Taiwan has been able to control all of its outbreaks so far and is incentivizing people to get their COVID shots. Klein Wang and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Shanghai has gone into lockdown amid a recent spike in COVID-19 infections. The lockdown will affect the eastern half of the city first, with all but essential workers told to stay home from Monday to Friday. The western half of the city will then be shut down from Friday to April 5th. It is hoped a staggered approach will avoid the economic blow from a total shutdown of China's commercial capital. The city of 25 million people reported over 2,000 new COVID cases on Saturday, the highest daily tally since the early days of the pandemic. All but 47 cases were asymptomatic, but a sudden jump in case numbers still poses a challenge to Beijing's zero COVID policy. This is the largest single city lockdown in China since the pandemic began. Taiwan's army has held live fire exercises on the offshore Matsu Islands, under 20 kilometers from the shores of China. The tactical shooting drills held over the weekend saw the skies over Beigan Island set ablaze with anti-aircraft artillery and machine gun fire. Tracer rounds were shot from atop armored vehicles that reached their positions via underground tunnels. The simulation of an aerial attack on the remote archipelago near southeast China's Fuzhou comes after drills earlier this month simulating a seaborne assault on remote Dongying, another of the Matsu Islands. The exercises are routine, according to the Defense Ministry, although they come at a time of heightened alert in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and increasing incursions by the Chinese Air Force into Taiwan's air defense zone. These incursions most often breach the zone to the south of Taiwan proper, but in February, a Chinese aircraft was detected near Dongying. Military officials called the move a provocation and a test of Taiwan's combat readiness. Survivors of the major train crash in Taiwan last year and relative of its 49 victims heckled Transportation Minister Wang Guocai on Monday. At a press conference in front of the legislature, the group said Wang failed to show up to a meeting he had promised them on March 23rd. The minister came to the press conference to apologize, saying an aide had made a scheduling error. He's agreed to meet with the group on Tuesday afternoon. The crash survivors and victims' relatives want an independent task force to oversee railway safety reform. They also want the Taiwan Railways Administration to take responsibility for handling compensation. The crash on April 2nd last year happened in eastern Taiwan's Hualien County when a Taroko express train collided with a construction vehicle that had rolled onto the track due to operator error. U.S. President Joe Biden has denied calling for regime change in Russia.
Mr. President, do you want Putin removed? Mr. President, were you calling for regime change?
No.
The U.S. administration has scurried to walk back Biden's unscripted comments in a speech in Warsaw, Poland. There he said the Russian president, quote, cannot remain in power. The White House later clarified that Biden meant Putin should not be allowed to exercise power over neighbors, not that he has called for regime change. Speaking in Jerusalem, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also defended Biden's remarks.
President, the White House made the point last night that, quite simply, President Putin cannot be empowered to wage war or engage in aggression against Ukraine or anyone else. As you know, and as you've heard us say repeatedly, we do not have a strategy of regime change in Russia or anywhere else for that matter.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said he's willing to discuss Ukraine's neutrality in a peace deal with Russia. But Zelenskyy said that any deal would have to be guaranteed by third parties and put to a referendum. He made the remarks during a 90-minute interview with Russian reporters. Moscow has since forbidden distribution of the interview. The offer comes as Russia and Ukraine begin one-on-one negotiations in Turkey. This will be the second round of direct talks between the two sides since Russia's invasion began last month.
Гарантии безопасности и нейтралитет, безъядерный статус нашего государства, мы готовы на него идти. Это самый главный пункт. Это был первый принципиальный пункт для Российской Федерации, насколько я помню. И насколько мне помнится, что они из-за этого начали войну.
2 weeks before the invasion started, President Zelenskyy's approval rating stood at about 20% as the war with Russian-backed separatist forces in eastern Ukraine dragged on. TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt spoke to Mikhail Alexeyev, a political scientist at San Diego State University, and asked him how Ukrainians view their president now.
By phone survey indicators, the best that was done in the kind of situation, we have his ratings jump to 91 and 93%. And the reason is very simple. He is completely in sync again with the prevalent mood of the people, which is, they don't want Russia to rule. They don't want the kleptocratic autocracy of Putin to descend on them and impose tyranny. They basically say, we will win or die. And that's exactly his view. When he posted that famous video, he gathered with all the cabinet members and he said, I am here, which in Ukrainian is Tut. I am Tut. Prime Minister is Tut. My chief assistant is Tut. The interior minister is Tut. And, you know, it was just such a calm, but such a courageous statement. And when the president of the United States is offering Zelensky to evacuate him, he replies, "I need weapons, I don't need a ride." So you basically have a person who is one with the people and completely represents the mood of society.
Zelenskyy is a Russian speaker. He's Jewish. How does the Kremlin view him when they say they're going into Ukraine to rid the country of Nazism? How do they actually view President Zelenskyy?
You know, it's a great question, because from our perspective here in the West, you know, the idea that you can have a Jewish Nazi president sounds like a total non-starter from the beginning. So why does the Russian public buy, and a lot of them do, 60 to 70% support the Putin narrative in Russia? And the Soviet historical narrative was that their Nazi atrocities were, you know, destroying cities and having concentration camps where all prisoners of war were, you know, exterminated, but they didn't emphasize the Jewish factor. The Soviet government, because of its own anti-Semitic policies, didn't want the Soviet population to be sympathetic to the Jews. So, for instance, in Kiev, there is a memorial to one of the biggest scenes of Nazi atrocities against the Jews, the Babin Yar, where by some count 150 to 180,000 Jews were exterminated by Hitler's troops. And in the Soviet times, there wasn't a big deal about it. They kind of built a park, and there was a plaque, and it said, "This is a memorial to Soviet soldiers, workers, sailors, farmers who were killed by the Nazis." They didn't say that this was the specifically targeting the Jewish population. So it's understandable to me why people don't connect Zelensky's Jewishness with the Kremlin lie about Zelensky being a Nazi.
Coming up, a story of language. The picture books helping Taiwan-born children of Southeast Asian parents learn their mother tongue. Details in a moment.
In a changing world, when voices are being silenced, TaiwanPlus is listening. We tell those stories. No compromise, no boundaries,
people in Taiwan.
no fear.
I want to study Chinese. I'm Ryan Kilpatrick. Capital Taipei.
TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Residents of a fishing village in southern Taiwan's Kaohsiung are protesting a move that would see their homes relocated due to industrial pollution. Dalinpu villagers gathered outside the government's second explanatory session on a relocation on Sunday. They called on factories around the village to be relocated, not the 20,000 residents. Several decades of industrialization have left Dalinpu surrounded by polluting factories. A 2019 report by Taiwan's environmental agency found people in the village have a higher risk of developing cancer. 3 years after it was announced, the move has still not begun. At a meeting on Sunday, Kaohsiung's mayor said the relocation would not start until all parties were satisfied with the terms.
假如说大家都没有共识，大家都不搬，我们也不能强迫人家一定要搬啊。所以我们是以照顾大林埔乡亲的最大福祉作为我们迁村的一个基准。
Our reporter James Chater recently visited Dalinpu and found out more about the concerns of the village's residents about the relocation plan.
Industrial chimney stacks cast ominous shadows over village lanes.
早期大林埔它不但是环境非常的美，而且非常的干净，空气非常的新鲜。那是从工业区进来，我们的命运就被改变了。
Since the 1980s, a government plan to create an industrial economic engine in Taiwan's southern port city of Kaohsiung has slowly ensnared the village of Dalinpu. For nearly 400 years, Dalinpu existed as a quiet fishing village on the outskirts of Kaohsiung, but rapid industrialization brought Taiwan's corporate giants, including Taipower, China Petroleum, Taiwan Shipbuilding, and China Steel. With the companies came economic growth and a visible imprint on the village. China Petroleum funded an activity center and the ornate temple in the heart of the village. But their arrival also brought a host of other problems. One of the biggest, pollution.
那我收到，我都会把这些来申请的住院的，我会把它收藏起来，包括他已经往生的病患，会把它收集起来。那我看了真的吓一跳，因为肺部的疾病比例是占最高的。
In 2019, an environmental agency report found higher levels of toxic chemicals in the water, soil, and air around Dalinpu, and concluded residents had a higher risk of developing cancer. That same year, the government approved a $2 billion relocation plan for Dalinpu's 20,000 residents. Zhang Yixing is a fourth-generation Dalinpu resident. His shrimp farm in the village now sits abandoned. He closed it in the early 1980s after he realized polluted water was making his shrimps sick.
虾苗，你如果没有把那个海水处理干净的话，虾苗那个脚啊都有那个毛毛的啦，就没有办法活动啊，然后几天就死掉了。
He says the ocean used to come right up to his backyard.
我目前站的这个地方就是堤防。
But due to land reclamation for industry, the coastline is now more than a kilometre away. Like many shrimp farmers in Dalinpu, he lost his business in part due to the reclamation. But Zhang says he's open to relocating, as long as the terms are right.
搬出去唔通搁摕钱，哦，变成若讲啊，我一只徛这间厝好好，我本身无负债。 迁出去，煞为着，搁要起厝来变成负债，安尼当然有的人就较无爱啊。
In 2010, the government conducted surveys to assess whether residents would be open to moving. At the time, 70% of Dalinpu residents agreed with the relocation. But since then, concerns about the relocation have evolved, and they mostly focus on the project's main slogan, 3 square meters for 3 square meters. It means for every 3 square meters residents have in Dalinpu, they'll get 3 square meters in the new area. But residents are worried a Taiwanese construction law means you can only construct on 60% of every 3 square meters, leaving residents with much smaller living space than before.
The reason why they're still so unhappy with the relocation plan is that they do not believe they will receive sufficient compensation to afford a similar house or like a similar household elsewhere in the city.
Raffaele Ippolito researches Dalinpu and has been talking with villagers nearly every day for the past year. He says there's a deeper issue that the relocation project doesn't adequately address, the 400-year-old bonds that tie this community together and make it home for the 20,000 residents. Behind me, you can see some of the 800 industrial chimney stacks which surround this once bustling fishing village. But after nearly half a century of industrialization in the local area, some residents here feel a sense of resignation about the relocation because the place they once knew is now unrecognizable. Dalinpu residents are now questioning who this relocation really benefits. After the relocation, the centuries-old village is set to be swallowed up by the industrial plants surrounding it.
The bottom line is, in Taiwan, economic development comes first, and economic interest comes first, and there's this internalized notion both at the institutional but also at the very community level that sacrifices have to be done.
For those making way for the economic development, are feeling there is no adequate compensation for their sacrifice.
如果真的你对不起大林埔人，是不是应该找一个土地比较广阔，规划为一个新迁村的大林埔那个新社区？如果你光给他土地，你就顺风车，就是说啊，居民怎么吵，就顺他们的意见这样吵，到时候是灭村，不是迁村。
Many here feel, in the lottery of winners and losers from industrial development, Dalinpu appears to have drawn the short straw. Asnaya Zhou and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
The Education Ministry has unveiled a series of illustrated books aimed at helping the children of immigrants from Southeast Asia pick up their parents' languages from a young age. John Van Trieste has this report.
A story of the immigrant experience. This bilingual storybook tells about a Taiwanese girl and her Vietnamese mother. When grandma back in Vietnam gets sick, the mom must leave Taiwan to take care of her. The book is one of 30 the Education Ministry has commissioned for small children just like the girl in this story. She is second-generation Taiwanese with a parent from Southeast Asia. One Vietnamese instructor living in Taiwan says that this is a story she can relate to.
他妈妈嫁来这边也会想他妈妈在家乡的妈妈。那因为这个故事，我想我有看到我自己的那个影子在里面，还有我的处境。
The books come in 7 Southeast Asian languages with accompanying Chinese texts. They are the result of 5 years of work, and they come at the perfect time. Southeast Asian languages are included in the school curriculum, part of the government's efforts to build closer ties with Taiwan's neighbors to the south. These books aim to give the Taiwan-born children of immigrants from Southeast Asia an early leg up and celebrate the diversity of modern-day Taiwan. James Rayner and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
It's the end of an era for Taiwan's railways, as the country's first domestically built passenger train, the Fuxing Semi-Express, prepares for its final journey. Entering into service in the 1980s, the Fuxing was once the mainstay of Taiwan's railway network. But recent years have seen more and more of the trains retired, with the only remaining route using the train running between Hualien in eastern Taiwan and Shuling in New Taipei. Now that too is set to end. According to Taiwan Railways Administration, the route will switch to a newer express service. Train spotters eager to get a final glimpse of the Fuxing can see the train arrive at Shuling Station for the last time at 9:56 a.m. on March 29th. Decorative metal frames on windows are an iconic sight in Taiwan. These are the creations of dedicated iron workers who still ply their trade to this day.
大家都用职人精神这种态度来做的话，其实我相信我们台湾是一直在往前。好像那个3楼那个铁窗，那时候我当学徒的时候，大部分就是做这样的铁窗。 所以它铁花窗跟铁窗的差别就差在扭折，因为扭折是最繁复的。铁花窗在当时的时候，他们在制作上因为工具的缺乏，所以他们是完全是手工做出来的。我们会去先丈量他们家窗户的大小。 回来之后，再裁切那个铁条，划分之后开始去做钻孔的动作，你才开始做扭折，把它的扁铁就是成团像的扭折，让2个扁铁可以交错在一起，变成一个十字花，然后最后再打铆钉。这时候它的框架基本上大致已经完成。
先拍起来，它线条还不错。
所谓台湾的铁窗花，它的造型是非常的丰沛的，然后有各式各样有机的造型，山啊、鸟啊、音乐啊，它的世界是非常活泼的。 我们常常在寻找所谓的台湾元素是什么？ 那这就是最代表台湾性的某一个象征。很多的图案都是只有台湾才会发生的图案，而且这些图案有时候也说着台湾的这些历史的脉络。
那铁花窗其实是台湾的一个特别的一个文化，它是属于我们的记忆，那也是属于我们铁工的一个技术在。我会问自己说，我们铁工前辈到底留下什么代表性的东西？后来我就发现说，比较有意义的就是铁花窗。开始我在当学徒的就是一块铁，我从一块铁就是这样不断的千锤百炼，那铁人家说百炼成钢，所以我也期待着说自己能像钢，可以这样继续坚持着，为自己的理想，然后不断的努力着，坚持着。
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Finally today, we'll leave you with some highlights of this year's Academy Awards. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.
Ay, oruguitas, no se aguanten más, hay que crecer, aparte y volver, hacia adelante seguirás, vienen milagros, vienen crisálidas, hay que partir y construir su propio futuro.